If you're going to be sitting in a chair for hours a day as a programmer, you better do it right. Let's talk about ergonomics for software developers and what works for me. But first, I want to quickly thank this video's sponsor. If you're tired of using boring old Zoom, you should take a look at Tilda. Tilda lets you create meetings with useful collaborative tools to make your meetings more engaging and more fun. It's built by creative people and with features that have creative people in mind. Give it a try with the link in the description below. It's free and doesn't even require an account. I, for one, didn't really used to care that much about ergonomics and would slouch all the time at my desk and not really give much thought into my setup. But turns out if you disregard that for too long, you can end up developing some small, nagging issues, and I definitely did. Back pain, RSI in my wrist, neck pain, you name it, I probably had it at some point. So let's look into a couple ergonomics pointers I used that helped me personally. First, let's look at chair height. I make sure it's high enough so my shoulders don't scrunch up while using the keyboard and mouse. My shoulders should feel relaxed while my elbows are at a roughly 90-degree angle. It doesn't have to be precise or anything, I just tried to find something that felt comfortable while keeping my shoulders in a fairly neutral position. If you try that and it raises your feet off the floor like it did for me, you can use something to prop them up so your legs stay comfortable. Dangling legs create unnecessary pressure behind the thighs and gave me a tendency to slouch forward because I couldn't sit back in my chair as comfortably as I would like to. A yoga mat or wood pieces, maybe books, or even a specialized footrest. It doesn't matter what you use so long as it allows you to keep a comfortable position with your back laying against your backrest. For most people that will probably mean having their chairs a bit higher than they are used to. To ensure that this doesn't create more problem than it avoids, make sure you raise your monitor so while comfortably sitting upright, you don't have to slouch forward or tilt your neck to see the important parts of your screen. As a developer, that probably means the top of your monitor should sit around eye level. I personally like it a bit higher than that because I do a lot of video editing and want to make sure I'm not tempted to slouch while working on a timeline that sits at the bottom of the screen. Secondly, make sure that the screen is sitting directly in front of you and parallel to your shoulders. That seems obvious, but I see so many people have multi-screen setups where both screens are off-center, or desks that keep the monitor to the side to free up the desk a bit more. You should avoid that at all costs, in my opinion. Keeping your neck from twisting as much as possible is always going to be a very high priority, as neck strain will creep up on you fast if you're not careful. Having a second screen off to the side is perfectly fine, so long as the biggest portion of your work, while your neck is in a static position for a long time, is done on your main monitor right in front of you without the need for twisting your neck. If you're working off a laptop screen only, which is totally fine, I'd suggest either using books or a specialized stand to reach the same goal. Slouching over or bending your neck to look at a laptop screen on the desk is definitely not something that I think is sustainable. Remember, if you go that route, just invest in some external peripherals so that you can also keep relaxed shoulders as you work. Let's talk about those peripherals. I personally like using a really short keyboard like the Magic Keyboard because it allows me to keep my hands centered in front of my body while typing and while using the mouse. It also sits very low, which means my wrists can stay in a very neutral position more easily. If you prefer bulkier keyboards like mechanical keyboards though, that's not really an issue at all. Just consider using a wrist rest so your wrist can stay in a neutral position as you type and slightly adjust your chair height to account for that. For my mouse, which is one of the things that brought me the most problems overall because of RSI, my biggest suggestion is actually to alternate between different options as much as you can. Because no matter what you use, whether it's a small mouse, an ergonomic one, a trackpad, trackball, whatever, they're all fairly unnatural. To avoid strains, just make an effort to change every now and then, especially if you're finding discomfort. It can be as simple as using your mouse left-handed for a while, using a vertical mouse for a small period of time, or switching to an external trackpad for a bit. That alone should help keep RSI in your wrist at bay if you're being careful. I obviously can't bypass one of the big things you can look into when it comes to long-time prevention of issues while programming, a standing desk. Now, I don't necessarily buy into the idea that standing is by itself better than sitting when you do it for hours on end every day. It comes with the same set of possible ergonomics issues menus, and then some more. But what it actually does allow you to do, in the same way that changing your mouse hand did, is to alternate between multiple positions, which will alleviate any bad effects that either of these positions may have had in the long run. Alternating between standing and sitting will lessen the bad effects of both of those options, and hopefully lead to less problems overall in the long run. While standing, I also obviously try to enforce the same ideas I laid out before that helped while sitting. Lastly, something that doesn't have to do with your physical setup as much. Huge, high-resolution monitors are fantastic for the screen real estate they offer, but don't fall into the trap of using too small of a font while you're programming. Make sure your fonts are big enough so you can easily read while keeping a good neutral position and aren't tempted to squint and lean forward while you're focusing on something. The great thing about all these tips, minus perhaps the standing desk, is that they have a fairly small budget requirement to at least try them out. I personally used just about any object that was laying around my house to make my setup more ergonomic and try things out to see if they worked for me before investing in some more permanent options. So give them a try, see if there's anything I discussed today that you could try with your own setup and see if it helps when you implement it. And obviously, if you have any serious discomfort or pain that persists through it, make sure you go see a health professional that will be able to advise you further. Anyway, I hope this was helpful to you all. I'll see you all in the next video, and until then, take care.
Go on.